President Trump met with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney today, and joining us now to discuss is Mike Leon, NTD News contributor and host of the Can We Please Talk podcast. And we have Tony Kinnett, national correspondent at the Daily Signal and host of the Tony Kinnett Cast radio show and podcast. So good to see you guys, as always. Tony, I'll start with you today. And you heard in the soundbite earlier that President Trump was talking about how the Canadian-U.S. relationship is complicated. Can we get your comments on that? Is it complicated? Why is it?
Well, I believe that it's definitely complicated in a business sense, given that Trump wants to kind of reset the balance of power economically here among the North American countries. But it's also a little bit awkward because, we were just in kind of a grumpy argument, kind of a tussle with Canada over certain things. And so, things are going to be a little bit awkward as you're in the middle of negotiating some normalized relations on the economic front. That's why there was those little awkward pauses, kind of after some minor chuckles when he would say, we're going to get it right and get it back. And that's, we were on the other side of that a couple of months ago. So I do believe there is some economic tension. What he says, coming from a Rust Belt state myself, the economic tensions, especially in steel and manufacturing between the United States and Canada, yes, those are very real. They have caused Americans economic pain, but it's not something that you can just snap your fingers and fix because, as the president accurately said, they're just next door and they're a major economic trading partner in a lot of economic areas. So to just snap your fingers and say, presto, it's fixed is not necessarily how this is going to work. It's quite an undertaking.
Okay, Mike, what do you think? Is this relationship between the U.S. and Canada complicated?
First off, good to see you all. Tony, drop the impression. Leave that to the professionals here. Everyone knows it's so good over here. So good. But, I heard recently the Minister of Transport, Lisa Raitt, she was a former Minister of Transport in Canada. She was on a podcast and she said something to the effect about tariffs and Canada and the U.S. And she said, it's like being on a flight with turbulence, right? You have to sit on the flight. You can't get off the plane. And you have to ride this out until it lands, right? And I think that analogy is really encompassing of what is going on right now. Look, Canada right now is at its highest unemployment rate in a minute, and 7.1%, I believe, is their unemployment rate right now. So Carney knows he's got his hands full. To what Tony was mentioning before, the two big industries that are highlighted here and the millions of dollars that pour across the border from both of those, they impact both countries. Like, let's be honest. Mm-hmm. I was speaking with a Canadian business owner, a small business owner from in the HVAC section, and he was telling me, kind of outlining for me the ways tariffs have impacted his business. There's a trickle back effect, right? Like we see the laughing and everything that's going on today in the pomp and circumstance around two leaders meeting. But there's a trickle back effect that's being felt on both sides of the border. And to Tony's point, you can't just magically snap your fingers and put that all back into place. It is a turbulent flight right now. It's been upended after USMCA is set to expire. So now we have to figure out how this trade agreement will be, and all while knowing that this is our neighbor. Like, this is somebody that people live on this side of the border and then work in Canada and vice versa, especially on the New York side, for example. So there's a lot to it, and it's a little bit more complicated than we're leading on.
So, Tony, I don't remember previous presidents saying that this relationship between Canada and the U.S. is complicated. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but what do you think each side is trying to get out of this meeting right now?
Well, Bill Clinton did famously in 1998 make it clear that Canada had been treated far too kindly with American economic passes. Was one of the only comments economically that was ever pointed out by the president. Usually that's left to the Secretary of Commerce in the Obama administration, for example. But as far as the Canadian relationship with the United States, it's got different facets. Again, the United Kingdom is famous for this. We've had very different relations with, for example, the State Department of the United Kingdom, the Trade Ministry of the United Kingdom, and then, of course, the military alliance between the United States and the United Kingdom. Canada's the same way. They're our little brother. No one messes with them militarily. I don't think so. But at the same time, we do need to iron out some of these economic, as much as I am loath to use the word imbalances, that do not, in fact, benefit all individuals on every side of, or on both sides of the border here. The issue that I think is at hand here is that once you start taking things apart, you find other things are broken. I replaced a well pump switch in my house this morning. It was a delightful experience. And I found something broken in the process of replacing it. That's a lot what this economic negotiation with Canada is proceeding through. The way that steel and aluminum tariffs and on both sides of the aisle, those kind of trigger mechanisms that set into place, those are very outdated and set for a very different kind of manufacturing environment when they were put into place. And so, again, Trump being kind of the bull in the China shop, he's breaking things in order to fix them. That's his style. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes that turbulence that Mike alluded to, that the former transportation minister of Canada had said, I think that's accurate here. And I think that we are coming out of that turbulence. It's just what the deal looks like on the other side in the new manufacturing economy that I'm still looking to see whether or not I like it or not.
This episode of Can We Please Talk is presented by our friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Delicious tasting coffee since 2009. They've been our proud sponsor. You see the promo code there. Look at this. They sent me this beautiful kit right here. Listen to that. Listen to that seal coming out, right? What's in it? Environmentally safe, compostable K-Pods. I love the dark Mexican blend. You can go to their website right now, take the quiz. That quiz is going to put you with a flavor profile. Listen to that sound of the coffee that you're going to be matched up with. Go to freshroastedcoffee.com. Click the link right now in our show notes. You can see it right there. Click that link. It's going to take you to the site. When you get to checkout, use our promo code, Can We Please Get 20? All one word, Can We Please Get 20, 20. You're going to get 20% off your first purchase. Head to freshroastedcoffee.com, our official sponsor of the Can We Please Talk podcast.
So, Mike, do you think that turbulence has eased a bit since Carney came to power? How would you describe the tone of the meeting today?
Well, I mean, you got to take out some of the dumb things. I'm not going to do. Maybe I'll do the impression right now. With a hot country right now, we're so hot. A lot of people say we're so hot. I mean, you can't quantify how hot we are, right? But I do think that Carney coming here, I think this is his third time that they've met. The second time coming here to the U.S. If I'm not mistaken, they met at one of the NATO summits as well. That wasn't here in the U.S. But I think it's symbolic of Carney coming here and saying, like, we're at an impasse because Canada is starting to feel it. And I mentioned this before about the former transport minister, but like I've been listening to, Don, a lot of Canadian podcasts to kind of find out more about what's going on up there. And they know that who holds the cards in the relationship. Like, let's be honest. Like I just mentioned, 3.6 billion Canadian dollars that flow into Canada from the business that we do with them. So, and the fact that the unemployment rate is starting to go a little bit higher now, Carney knows that he has to come a little bit hand in hand, but also with an understanding, like to Tony's point, that there can't be a quick Band-Aid to this. The USMCA lasted 5 years. NAFTA was what, 9 years, 10 years? My math sucks right now. Maybe a little bit longer, so you can correct me on that. I think it was a little bit longer. But there has to be something that's set framework-wise that doesn't impact Canadian business owners and doesn't impact U.S. business owners. And to the bull in China shop analogy that Tony gave, it is true right now. Trump has, we've said this numerous times, he's used tariffs as leverage. He wants people to come over here, grovel. That way he can publicly show his base, hey, look, I'm telling them to build here in America, buy here in America, like we're going to do it here in America, or they're going to pay this exorbitant fee. And I think we're starting to see with Canada, there's actual real impact happening right now with respect to some businesses, some automotive shops starting to close in Canada. Like they're starting to feel that impact. So he's using it to his advantage. It is a bull in a China shop thing because now the glass is broken. Now we've got to figure out, how do we put this back together? Do we even want to put this back together, or do we even want to buy a new set altogether in continuing with the analogy?
Okay, Tony, I want to ask you this as well. How do you think Trump's talk of making Canada the 51st state, how does that fit into the picture?
Well, for those of us who have kind of a long form view of history instead of reacting to every single word out of the president's mouth, it was very clear. And by the way, as someone who would have no problem with Alberta seceding from Canada and joining the Union, North Indiana, as it were, no, I don't think Canada as the 51st state was ever some extremely big, serious negotiation tactic. I think he said that to draw a clear line of frustration from Trudeau and then from Carney. It does benefit Trump to have Carney being the one that he negotiated with, given that Pierre Poilievre would have been a much more Canada first, willing to take it on the chin style negotiator. Whereas I think that Carney here is in a really difficult position and essentially does have to, as Mike accurately put it, kind of grovel a bit. And this is the real rub. This is the real issue with economic deals that is going to make people a little uncomfortable. There is no everyone wins game where we all dance around in a field of flowers. We're not to that point yet. I know Ezra Klein on the left and his abundance style of economics, kind of the classic Tea Party right, is also in favor of that type of abundance economics. We're not there yet to the point where the resources are flowing so freely that everyone's a winner. And so for the next 10 years, as you do repair the economic system that was hollowed out by the mass manufacturing being shipped out of the country and new economies taking its place, not even having sure footing yet, the education system being rather broken to prepare people for an economy that really no longer exists. Well, that means that if we just set up the US Canadian relationship to be just the way it always has been, then it is going to unfairly benefit Canadians when Americans hold the cards. And I'm sorry that that has to be said. I'm electing leaders to serve my best interests first. My father lost his job in the '08 ship off of jobs, and Mexico benefited from NAFTA policy. You can say, well, but on principle, it's really wonderful. And maybe it is in theory, but this isn't in theory, it's in practice. There's a lot more factors to economics, there's a lot more factors to trade and manufacturing. This is something that I think Mike and I articulate really well when we come on these segments. There are a lot of nuances to these policies that aren't as easy as just slapping a campaign slogan or a band-aid on something and getting the kumbaya experience that every campaign, regardless of party, promises. And I think you're seeing that borne out in these negotiations. That's why they sound different every time. And that's why, even though maybe very extravagant statements like, ooh, the 51st state being Canada are proposed, long-term people who pay attention to these things and keep an eye on them, they weren't really mussed or fussed. They were just like, he's posturing. And lo and behold, he was posturing.
Okay, so Mike, Trump is doing what he set out to do in his campaign promises, right? Make America first.
He is. I mean, again, I look. There are a lot of other pundits that will go on TV and they won't give the president credit for anything. I would love to happily join them in certain instances, but then there are certain times where, if, like, for example, Israel and Gaza, this 20-point plan, I've mentioned this a bunch of times, but I know we may wander here, but if he solves a conflict in the Middle East that is thousands of years old and in a land dispute for all intent and purpose, I mean, you have to give the person credit for that, especially when other people in the region are giving him credit for that. So to answer your broader question, and one thing Tony said there that I want to piggyback on, Don, that's very important in all this is he's right about Carney winning the prime minister seat, because I think the poke was always at Trudeau. And that's why Trudeau went to, if you remember, when Trump won, he went to Mar-a-Lago. I think he was the first world leader to go to Mar-a-Lago right afterwards. He was always poking at Trudeau. But Carney stepping in, who, again, has an economics background. I mean, there's nobody better to lead. If you're going to want to navigate the turbulence of these economic flights, for the analogy,
bring in the banker.
You want Mark Carney. Yeah, you want Mark Carney being, either pilot or co-pilot in this. And I think Canada has somebody in there that understands that. And I also think that Trump knows Carney's background. And I'm not sure if they've ever had any business dealings together, but they know each other and they know their background. They know what they bring. And Tony and I, he said it again, I'll echo it. It's about explaining how these policies affect every day, whether it be Americans and in this case, Canadians. And Tony giving that example of jobs being shipped off, wherever the policy nets out, somebody will lose from this, right? There's always sometimes a winner, sometimes a loser. And so there'll always be that with respect to this negotiation, which is why we need to understand that. And I think you saw a different tone, I thought. Outside of the joking, outside of the America's a hot country or whatever, I think you saw a different tone when the two of them were talking about the relationship. And I thought Trump actually summarized it pretty well about, like, we have natural, interests that conflict, but, we love each other. I love Canada. So
accurate.
I thought it was a different tone this time for sure.
Okay, so Tony, I understand your position that the president should prioritize Americans, America First policy, right? But you need to balance that with your having your allies, right? So what is the appropriate approach where you don't isolate yourself?
The fun dance between the Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of the Treasury, and then your Secretary of State, because we don't want to push Canada into communist China's arms. We don't want to push any country into communist China's arms. They are the worst, underlined, bolded, italicized. And I don't want to see China allow itself any more room to grow as some kind of a pseudo moldy global hegemon amid its failing economy and culture. And then I see the Trump administration here, I do believe, kind of playing kind of the pre-World War I America revitalization with the United Kingdom, which is that, yeah, we have our disagreements, but there are bigger lions prowling around on the world stage that it's within our interest to take care of. And Trump, it's not the first time he said that. I know that he said that in the NATO meeting that Mike, of course, alluded to a little bit earlier. And he said that even amid the economic strife, he said, look, nobody's going to touch Canada. And the Golden Dome manufacturing idea, or at least the increasing of the United States Aegis missile defense systems and the THAAD missile defense systems, et cetera, drone countermeasures. Yes, Canada definitely needs to benefit from that as well. And so in this kind of new global ally structure, we do need to determine how we create an economic imbalance that is as minimal in its imbalance as possible to benefit Canada, because we do want Canada to grow, because then when they grow, they can buy more US stuff, the industry increases, and you do see a larger net amount of happiness and a smaller net amount of people who do lose long term. That's the abundance policy to work to. But at the same time, yeah, if we're talking about allies or countries that will get less while the US gets more, I would prefer to see Canada be as close to the United States in that net balance of fairness as possible, because, yeah, Beijing should not benefit off of a failed economic alliance, maybe would be the way to say it, between the US and Canada.
Hey, everybody, Mike Leon from the Can We Please Talk podcast. Thank you so much for watching this clip. Do me a favor, hit subscribe. Gonna get more content from us over at Can We Please Talk.